Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into today's second video. We're going to have a look at the weather for next week to 10 days for today's second video, which will take us around the 25th of November. So we're going into the sort of final week or so of the month now with the week 10 day video update time frame. We'll be able to extend out beyond that with the extended GFS and ESA ensembles running to around a couple of weeks, just about getting us to the 1st of December, I think. So I'll get one for you very shortly, just to say that JMA Friday has been released. That's the month-end look ahead, and it's taking us up to the middle of December. It looks like, certainly for the first half of December anyway, we're going to be re-establishing the west or southwesterlies and turning things milder, wetter, or staying wet, I suppose, and pretty windy as well. Have a look at JMA Friday and see what's going on there. Now, before I do anything else, I'm going to say a big thank you to our latest PayPal donor. So we have had a new donation through PayPal for Gaz of it. So I'm going to say a big thank you to our latest donor, Kate Lloyd. Thank you, Kate Lloyd, for becoming the latest donor for Gazzovis. That's very, very kind. Thank you so much for doing that for us, Kate. So if you would like to become a donor for Gazzovis, then all you need to do is come to the Gazzovis PayPal page, sign into your PayPal account, and then you can give a donation to Gazzovis. And by doing that, you're going to help to pay for the content and keep the website online. So big thank you to everybody for doing that. Been a huge success over the nearly 18 months now that we've been doing this. So big thank you to all of our PayPal donors, and we hope that you're enjoying the content. Alternatively, you can give or you can become, wasn't expecting that to pop up, so it's saying get ready for hashtag Thank You Patrons Day. So we're going to have a hashtag Thank You Patrons Day. I'll have to have a read about it a little bit later, but alternatively, you can become a patron for Gazzovis. So for that, all you need to do is come to the Gazzovis Patreon page. You sign up for a Patreon account, assuming you don't already have one, and then you can become a patron for Gazzovis. You can pledge an ongoing monthly donation. It can be anything from $1 a month upwards to Gazzovis, and by doing that, you become a patron for Gazzovis. Now, whether you do it through Patreon or through PayPal, you're going to get a shout out in the video to say thank you very much for doing that if you want one. So, again, that's how you become a patron. That's how you become a donor. We've got 64 patrons so far. So, hello, big thank you to all of our 64 patrons. So, just a big thank you to all of the patrons and all of the donors for the Gazzovis. Very, very kind what you're doing for us. And a special thank you to latest donor, Kate Lloyd. Thank you so much, Kate Lloyd, for becoming our latest donor. Right, so let's start off in the stratosphere then. This is how things are looking in terms of the temperature at 10 HPA over the North Pole today. So we've got a pretty cold temperature, 10 HPA over the North Pole. That's in the stratosphere, of course. With these dark blue colours here, that is the cold temperatures at 10 HPA, along with a strong zone of wind, of course. So PB at its roots is quite strong, but in the troposphere, it's actually a little bit weakened. If anything, the temperature gets colder at 10 HPA over the next few days. See those purple colours appearing. Temperature going down to -80. That's a very cold stratospheric temperature indeed. And they're running into the more extended range, so going through the final week of November, we see this. So again, hints of a little bit of a warm-up beginning to appear over Siberia. There we go, that's how we finish on the 1st of December. We are seeing a forecast of quite a significant warming of stratosphere over Siberia at that point. It's not a sudden stratospheric warming to that point, because those are still relatively modest sort of temperatures, but it might be going in that direction. It's very early days for any kind of warming over Siberia, really. This is something that you tend to associate more later in the winter, so from mid to late winter onwards. So to be seeing that on the 1st of December is quite unusual. We did get an early southern stratospheric warming last year, of course, around Christmas and New Year, and that one didn't actually translate into all that much of a way of northern blocking. Certainly not been affected our side of the pole anyway, although it did get colder for a couple of weeks in the second half of January. But anyway, that's quite significant, and we shall see whether the GFS develops that any further. Of course, around a week or so ago, we did have hints within the extended GFS that there might be a southern stratospheric warming occurring during the second half of November. Those hints have gone away, and that's been pushed back to the beginning of December. So we should wait and see. Of course, the reason we look at that is that when you get a dramatic warming of the stratosphere over the North Pole, it can translate that to an increase in northern blocking around sort of 3-4 weeks down the track. So that can sometimes be a precursor, or southern stratospheric warming can sometimes be a precursor to getting much colder air pushed out of the pole and down into mid-latitude. But every southern stratospheric warming is different. It's not a guarantee that we will get northern blocking and very cold weather after southern stratospheric warming, but we do keep a very close eye on what's happening in the stratosphere during the winter months. So all eyes on that in the days ahead, I suppose. Right, coming back to weather next week to 10 days. These are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. The red line is the 30-year upper air temperature average. I'm looking at Conwy today, Conwy in Wales. So if you'd like to have your local town or city featured within this section of video, please let us know through the comments at GazWeathers, or you can email us at gazweathers@gmail.com, or you can ask us through our social media accounts, Facebook and Twitter, and we'll add you to the list if you'd like to have your local town or city featured. At the moment, it's colder than average at Conwy. We remain pretty chilly, and of course, dates on the bottom of the chart here. So for the next sort of 5 days or so, it's going to stay quite cold as well. Towards the second half of next week, though, we are seeing a bit of a warming trend. Temperatures are lifting up, and we're going to a milder spell of weather then for a few days later next week, and then into the final week of November. Now, in the very closing days of November, and that's this period just here, we have got a lot of scatter. We've got quite a few cold members appearing. These are going quite a lot colder. Of course, these ones up here are relatively mild, so there is a lot of scatter in the extended range, but the broad theme continues to be as it has been, with temperatures in the videos over the past few days, which is pretty cold until the middle of next week, then getting milder, and going milder into the final week of November. Beyond that, it's a bit speculative. Quite unsettled too. So the next few days, not going to be overly wet, but next week does look as though it's going to turn increasingly unsettled again. There'll be further bands of rain being thrown up from low pressure in the Atlantic, and all in all, it looks pretty wet through towards month's end at Conwy, and I think that's a pretty decent representation of most parts of the country as well. Temperature anomalies from the 15th to the 23rd of November, rather colder than average in most parts of the country, but not quite as cold as these charts have been over the past few days, but nevertheless, we're still talking about rather colder than average temperature anomalies. I suspect these may start to trend a little bit warmer, though, over the next few days. Precipitation anomalies actually looking a little bit drier now. So this is the 15th to 23rd of November. Northern parts of the country definitely drier than average. Some eastern areas also a little bit drier than average. Still rather wet down in this southwestern corner. I think there'll be a little bit more rain than that's suggesting through next week. But of course, we'll see about that. This is how the GFS is looking for Monday, and I've got a little bit of a ridge of high pressure close to the country on Monday. It'll be a relatively dry first half next week, quite cold with this area of high pressure sitting to our north, bringing in the wind from an easterly direction. So up to around Tuesday, the temperatures are staying quite cold, and then this low pressure begins to move up from the southwest, or it has a go at doing it anyway. It's struggling a little bit. So the low pressure by Thursday is centred around the Bay of Biscay, trying to throw up bands of rain. What is happening is that wind is shifting more towards the south or southeast, so we are starting to drag up some milder air or some less cold air from the south, although I would have thought up to the middle of next week, northern areas probably still quite cold. Up to the end of next week, this low pressure then pushes northwards, presumably taking increasing amounts of rain with it, and then heading in towards day 10, we have got a battle going on here. So a proper battleground situation with low pressure out to the west and to the southwest. High pressure is up to the north and northeast. And so these two air masses are battling it out with one another. That's probably why things have got a little bit drier in the past 24 hours with those anomaly charts, because a lot of the rain now with this scenario will be going down here towards France, Spain and Portugal. We're left kind of in a no man's land, neither under high pressure or low pressure. I expect for some areas there would still be more rain associated with that, but probably relatively dry up to the north and the east. Although the winds are coming in from generally an easterly direction, it's relatively mild air mass that's pushing northwards up through Europe and then curving out something a little bit like that. So it's relatively mild air mass in terms of the upper air temperature. Down on the surface though, with the air coming in off the North Sea, I expect we'll be dragging in a lot of low cloud. We may have increasing problems with fog next week, given the fact that the ground is very saturated and very soggy. So if we start to get cold, clear nights, I don't think it'll take long before we start generating fog after all of the wet weather that we have had recently. To the more extended range, it stays. We stay with this sort of dual between high pressure to the north, northeast, low pressure to the west, southwest. That's how it looks as we get towards day 10. So we still have that high pressure to the east. Low pressure is still to the west. That high pressure is fending off the lows to some degree. So maybe going into a rather drier sort of final week of November. And relatively mild unless skies are clear. And then we will have issues with frost and fog. This is how the GEM is looking. So on Monday, we've got a ridge of high pressure building in, and it's rather cold as well. That ridge is still with us into Tuesday. Wednesday, this low is having a go at coming in from the Atlantic, but it's being fended off. Winds are going into a southerly direction. This low pressure continues to sit out to the west of us into the second half next week. High pressure continues to be to our east and north. Winds going to the south, so that is pushing up some milder air with it. And then the GEM goes increasingly unsettled as we run up towards day 10. This low pressure moves back in across the country, bringing a return of very wet conditions by the time we get through to day 10, which is Monday the 25th of November. ECM looks like that. So again, rather cold and a little bit drier to begin next week. Then in the middle of next week, this low pressure gets closer to us, brings rain, probably particularly into the west. Many northern east areas mainly dry up to the middle of next week. Winds are turning into the south, so I would have thought temperatures are beginning to lift up a little bit. To second half next week, this low pressure sits to the southwest of Ireland. We throw up rain bands with that low pressure, but again, if you follow the isobars map, the air is originating to our south and moving northwards, so it is becoming milder through the second half next week. But the ECM is quite wet and quite unsettled, I think, through the middle of next week to the end of next week. And then heading up towards day 10, that's how we're looking. Quite a messy picture at day 10. So we've got low pressure down towards Spain and Portugal down there, the Bay of Biscay. We've also got a trough of low pressure to the north of us that's trying to push down much colder air from the north, and we have a mid-Atlantic ridge heading up towards Greenland. That could be trying to set up much colder conditions. If you have a look at the upper air temperatures, you will see that there's quite a big cold pool sitting just to our north. So if winds were to swing into the north, that would give us a real plunge of cold air from the north. Of course, as it is, what's more likely to happen, I would have thought, is that this low pressure down to southwest is probably going to push northwards again and bring more rain with it. But that could go into a little bit of a battle sort of situation where you might have weather fronts that are kind of strung out and marking the boundary between that cold air trying to push it down from the north and the mild air trying to move up from the south. It's a very inconclusive sort of week to 10 days coming up, actually. It's not going to be as unsettled as it has been, but there will still be rain, particularly for the west and the southwest. Temperatures will lift up through the middle and second half of next week, so it's going to become less cold or milder. But exactly how this works out as we move towards the final week of November, I think there's reading between the lines of these model outputs. I think there is a lot of doubt actually particularly in terms of the detail, but also in terms of the overall synoptics about where this is heading for the last week of November. These are the options that are on the table within the ECM ensembles today for day 10, which is the 25th of November. We have 24 members of the ECM ensembles, including the control and the operational run, that have above average heights to our north and east, below average heights, low pressure to our west. So rather unsettled and bringing up a mild sort of southerly, southwesterly type wind. Then we have 14 though that have high pressure dominating to the north. This is a northern blocking type feature with above average heights from Scandinavia to Greenland, below average heights down to our southwest. Wind would be rather more southeasterly with that, so a little bit cooler on that scenario, and drier for many of us as well, although in the southwest probably a bit wet. And then we have 13 members of the ECM ensembles here with above average heights around Greenland and middle of the Atlantic, and a deep area of below average heights right over top of the country. That's the most unsettled scenario, and that'd be a very, very wet scenario as well. That area of above average heights to the north is trying to push down cold air from the north as well. So, all very, very inconclusive, I think, as we go towards day 10 about where this is evolving. In 2 weeks' time, these are the options that we've got, which is the last day of November. This is getting us to 360 hours out. 30th of November, 18 members of the ECM ensembles with high pressure sitting over to the east, thus bringing in probably some sort of gentle easterly type flow. 17 just here, looking really unsettled, deep area, low pressure over the country. There's nothing else going on there other than the deluge is returning. And then 16 just here with low pressure out to the northwest and high pressure to the south. That's quite unsettled, particularly for northern areas, and you would have thought reasonably mild as well. So all sorts of possibilities for this last week of November. I suspect this last week of November will be the focus of the videos next week. Finally, this is how the CFS-V2 is forecasting December. So this is the 700 millibar height anomaly for December from the CFS-V2. And it looks very unsettled. Below average heights to our north and west. Above average heights are to our south and also southwest. Excuse me. Winds are coming in from a west to southwesterly direction. That's going to be very mild, but also potentially very wet. It is a consistent signal from the CFS monthlies at this stage. Temperature anomalies are significantly above average, going for a substantially warmer than average December. Precipitation anomalies quite weak as they usually are, but if anything, probably hinting at a wetter than average month, which of course you'd expect with such long fetch west-south-westerlies dragging in low pressure from off the Atlantic. You would expect a very active month's weather with a lot of wind and a lot of rain, and that's exactly what the CFS is showing there. That's all speculative, and I think we've got uncertainty really within the week to 10-day time frame. So what we can say quite confidently is that the early part of next week is going to be relatively dry and quite cold. Then through the middle part of next week, it goes milder. Rain will try to come in from the west, but may actually struggle a little bit. Could be mostly confined to the far west and southwest. So that's to be determined exactly how unsettled it gets next week. But it looks like winds will switch into the southwest, which will pull up some milder air from the south. Then as we head towards the last week of November, I don't know about you, but I think it all looks very, very sketchy, and the detail looks quite hard to pin down for this last week of November. So exactly where it's going for the last week of November, I think, remains to be seen. I would suggest probably the trend is towards drier weather in the final week of November, but we may actually, although the upper air temperatures might be quite mild, I expect if we go into like a cold type situation, which is where we're neither at high pressure or low pressure, we may find that we very quickly start to fog up with that, given how wet and saturated and sodden the ground is. I think we could very, very quickly start to have problems with fog as we move into the last week of November. Maybe maybe, but as I say, it does look rather sketchy that last week of November, and I think that will be the focus for the videos in the coming days, and as we head towards the beginning of December as well, of course. Right, that's the videos for today. Now, tomorrow we've got the week ahead forecast coming up for you as well as on Saturday. Have another week, 10-day video update. And I think we've got a quiz update penciled in for tomorrow as well. That'll be the 6th quiz update tomorrow evening. And then on Sunday, it's going to be the 12th and penultimate winter update. So we haven't got many more winter updates left to do. 12th winter update is coming up on Sunday. Amongst everything else that we look at, that's going to be a little bit of an ENSO special. And then there'll be a live stream that goes with that on YouTube, on Gaston's YouTube channel, between 5 and 6 o'clock on Sunday evening, where we'll answer as many of your questions about that winter update as we can. Right, so keep checking back to the website for all of the updates over the weekend, but that's all for now, and thanks for watching.